Mr. Barron was not forced to resign. I want to make that crystal clear. It was voluntary, and I'll give you the specifics in 1 minute. Ms. Woolard and I had breakfast with him recently, a couple of days ago as a matter of fact, and talked about this, and it was mutual consent agreement, because his continued presence, and this is my word, not his word, not Ms. Woolard's word, but a distraction. Not from any wrongdoing on his part, but there are the naysayers out there who are going to continue to criticize Fulton County no matter what we do. Because, you've heard me say this before, why? We delivered President Biden, we delivered Senator Warnock, we delivered Senator Ossoff, and we, in all probability, will deliver Senator Warnock again in 2022. So we'll see what happens in 2024. But we in Fulton County will continue to have a target on our back. And so as long as Mr. Barron was here, my words, not his, was a distraction. And so this was a mutual decision. He was not forced out. I'm trying to make that crystal clear.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
Did he say in his resignation letter why he's leaving? And can you also reiterate for the people who are involved, the citizens who are going through a runoff, the mayor's race and other races, that things will be running smoothly?
Sure, I'll take it. Gosh, I only got to look at his letter for about a nanosecond this morning, but I've been talking to Rick just quietly and personally now for a couple weeks, and I think he's just, you know, anytime somebody's been somewhere for 8 years, you know, and particularly 8 years that have been challenging, you know, they start to look around and see if there's a quality of life or a next step that seems to make sense, and I think Rick's been wrestling with that for some time, so he came to his own conclusion about that. I think, again, one of the things I'm thankful for is that he's given us, you know, a good long window to get through the current election. But when I first took this position and I was hearing all the turmoil about should somebody leave, should somebody go, how do you get somebody in, laying out a time frame for having a leadership change when you have primaries, you know, 5-6 months into next year, does not give you much time for that smooth transition. So again, I think he was thinking uppermost of his team and of the elections that are to come, and offered us, while it seems a little shocking right now, offered us the best window that he possibly could, knowing what he knows about what it takes to run these elections.
Chairman, a few weeks ago, the Board of Elections had submitted a contract with the elections group that was denied, that the consultancy that Mr. Barron had pushed for. Did that factor into, you think, his resignation at all?
Not at all. Not at all. Had nothing to do with it. I mean, from my perspective, because I didn't support that contract, I thought that we were on the right track, and I thought that we had the expertise and knowledge in-house to carry out what that firm would have carried out, particularly at the cost proposal that they had submitted to us.
Ms. Ward, how is this going to affect the county's defense before the state election board and the current inquiry?
You know, that's a good question. I'm not sure I know the answer, and we will find out. But what I will say is I have been with 3 members of the Performance Review Committee, both last week as they came through and investigated the facilities and sort of the preparation, and then yesterday as they were in the warehouse all day and monitoring what we were doing or watching what we were doing. And it has been cordial. It has been open. They have given us positive feedback on virtually everything that we've discussed. So I don't think, first of all, I don't see it as acrimonious. Secondly, I don't see that what they will be coming forward with will be damning, for lack of a better word. You know, it's up to them, but from our discussions, I haven't seen that. And the only thing I can think of is, you know, they'll have some opinion about, you know, who might come next. But I think the operations have been solid, and they've recognized it.
Yes.
Since the June election, the county's invested a lot in the elections department and made a lot of changes to how it operates. Can you walk us through some of the improvements and changes the county's made to respond to some of the shortcomings in the past?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure there were shortcomings. I can explain step by step as to what happened in 2020. But again, you've heard me say this 1,000 times. There's no such thing as a perfect election. So we're always looking for ways to improve. Most of what I even witnessed yesterday in the 25 precincts, the situations that I saw that needed some additional attention, they were all internal, meaning that the public really had little knowledge or would have had little knowledge of what was going on. I'm a classic example. I'm always first to vote at my precinct. I was yesterday. Well, the poll pad wasn't working properly, so I had to wait for a few minutes, probably 5 minutes, to get it working. There were probably 25 people in line behind me. Everybody waited patiently until the problem was resolved. Once the problem was resolved, it was business as usual. But what I mean by internal issues, for example, a poll manager didn't show up or decided that he or she didn't want to work. Poll workers, in many cases, decided, well, I'm not going to work tomorrow, so I'm not going. Equipment that should have been, the right equipment rather, that should have been picked up by the poll manager was not picked up. We had to make deliveries to their homes at night. Another example, I think a classic example, Park Tavern, which is where all of you guys and girls had these photos and shots of all the long lines in 2020. Well, no lines at all yesterday, thank God. But what happened there was a wedding scheduled at the time that the equipment was to be delivered. And so the equipment had to be stored in the basement. Instead of us being able to set the equipment up, we could not because of that wedding. So we had to hustle that next morning prior to the polls opening to get everything set up. So there are things that happen behind the scenes that the public is never aware of. And it's all internal versus things that the public would know about. So to answer your question, we've made those kinds of changes. We've made some structural changes. Ms. Woolard and I are talking about other changes that may need to be made within the department, restructuring from an organizational chart point of view, things of that nature that we're going to be pursuing in the days and weeks to come.
Mr. Chairman, could you put this into context for everything that's gone on this year internally? With the election board, as I recall, wanting to remove him earlier this year, and you and the commission not wanting to go along with that, and he stayed, and how did that wear on him, and how did it bring us to this point now?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, obviously it had a role to play. I mean, he's a human being. He's a father. He's raising a child by himself. His 13-year-old daughter, I believe, hears this stuff, sees this stuff. I mean, the threats on him. I received them. He had protection. I had and have protection as well. So it wears on you. So not only from a personal point of view, but from a professional point of view. And I think over time, this does become a problem. But when we talk with him on Sunday, we ask, how's your health? How are you feeling? How are you doing? And he said, fine. But I'm not sure that's always the case. You say fine, but who knows what's going on internally, because to be under that kind of pressure, that kind of scrutiny for that long will wear on anybody. When you have the former President of the United States and his minions, Secretary of State and his minions, daily blasting you, it takes a toll on you after a while.
With all that in mind for both of y'all, how are you going to find someone who's good for this job who will take it? I mean, will there have to be some convincing? I mean, the eyes of a lot of people are on this position now. So how do you plan on finding a replacement in general?
Well, I've only talked to 2 of the 5 of us on the BRE just in recent minutes, and I think we're all in agreement that we'll do a national search, that we'll be looking for the best person that we can get that's the best fit for what our needs are. I think it'll be difficult. I think anybody that is in this field of elections, we know that seasoned executives across the country have been retiring or leaving these positions pretty rapidly. You can look at professional organizations for indication of that. So we may have to be creative in how we structure things and the kind of talent pool that we're looking at, and how we manage this. But whenever there's a leadership change, there's great opportunity to kind of accentuate something that maybe the previous predecessor didn't have as a strength. And use what that person left as a strength as something that you can kind of ride on. But I think it's going to take it's gonna take us some time to find the right person, and we won't move until we do.
Sure. When you say creative, any strategy for, does that mean like someone outside of the box, like someone who wasn't necessarily an elections director, but maybe someone like from the vendor side? I just want to make sure I understand.
I am open to being very creative about who that person is, as long as they meet the requirements that we draft relative to the job description. I know that DeKalb County is involved in a search right now, so we're certainly going to look at what they're looking for. I'd like to talk to the staff and and the other BRE members to see what they think we need. But this is a big logistics function. And it's a big compliance function. So I think that there are people in the world of logistics and or compliance that have a skill set that lends itself to understanding how to do something this complex. But I also know that elections are their own things, and so we've got to make sure that we've got the right talent, across the board in the department to support whoever it is comes in.
Can you guys speak a little bit to the election results? It's our understanding that Felicia Moore and Andre Dickens will go to a runoff, but I don't think anyone's officially called it. We expect the certification to come next week, but can you guys just speak to the understanding of the results at this point?
I don't even know who's in a runoff.
Yeah,
We've
I don't
been
think
at
we
the
can do
commission
that.
meeting.
I think Rick and his staff would be the appropriate people to ask about that.
Fair enough.
I'm sorry, Ben.
Just in general, kind of along the same lines, how do you plan on pitching the position to someone? Because it might be a tough sell. So just wondering if you have any plans for why someone would want to take this job.
Well, first they get to work with the two of us.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's probably a slam dunk. I probably got to go answer calls as soon as we get out of here. But, again, it's a great county. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to be. We have elections all the time. If you're looking to make, your move into the elections arena at a leadership level, this is the place to be. But, we are in competition with like counties across the country right now for seasoned talent, and we're going to have to be aggressive about it.
Does the threat of a state takeover affect who would want to take this position if they don't know several months from now who they'll be answering to?
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'm not sure how real a state takeover is. I know the words are used in the legislation, but the feedback that I've gotten from Ms. Woolard and others who've talked with the, what do you call them?
Performance Review Board.
The Performance Review Board, they've been very pleased with what we're doing here. So I don't believe that that's imminent. I have no inside knowledge, but the feedback that I've gotten, they're pleased. And once you see the operation up close, you understand, first of all, how complex it is, and you get an appreciation for the job that we've done. And that's why back in 2020, if you recall, the Secretary of State praised Fulton County for a job well done. His hand-picked person followed Mr. Barron around all day long, documented every word, every step that he took, praised Fulton County for a job well done. Votes were counted 3 times, once by hand. Results were eerily the same each time. So I'm just convinced that we have done a good job. The things that happened in 2020 were beyond our control, but we reacted on the spur of the moment to even now. We're so nimble that if a problem is brought to our attention, we're able to react quickly, just as we did a couple of weeks ago when it came to our attention about the 2 employees who were shredding requests for registration. We heard about it, got to the source, and took quick decisive action. And that's how we're structured.